they're focused on us. And it's just nice for them to feel that somebody's thinking about them at this time.
That was the tour manager of Dairy West Couriers and Kindness. He is using his food truck to give fresh grilled cheese sandwiches to healthcare workers at the South Jordan Health Center as part of Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday was created in 2012 to encourage people to do good things during the start of the holiday season. It has grown into a global phenomenon where people consider donating money and time to causes of their choice. Joining us now is Kierra, the Director of Volunteer Services for the Youth Resource Center at Volunteers of America, to talk about the services they provide. Hey Kierra, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, let's start with Volunteers for America. How did your organization start and what is your mission all about?
So Volunteers of America is a national organization that started in 1896. And our founders created this organization off of their signature mission statement, which is, we will go where we are needed and do what needs to be done. So Volunteers of America Utah is just one affiliate of many that works towards furthering this mission every single day.
I want to know a little bit about you. How did you get involved with Volunteers of America?
That's a great question. I actually had a personal connection to Volunteers of America. I was there as a volunteer initially when I was in college, and I just fell in love with the community of volunteers, of staff, and the clients we serve, and honestly, it became a career change almost overnight, and I was hooked.
Talk a little bit about some of the programs that Volunteers of America provides and what kind of work the volunteers you organize end up doing.
Sure, so at Volunteers of America, we work to bridge towards self-reliance and health for our clients and individuals that are experiencing homelessness, addiction, and mental health. And we've created all of our programs to tailor towards those specific vulnerable communities. So for example, many of our facilities are drop-in shelters. So we could have a client that could show up, come in, get a shower, some new clothes, a hot meal, somewhere to sleep for tonight. We also have case management teams that connect them towards housing and job opportunities. We also have teams that work as clinicians, counseling facilities, as well as treatment programs for our clients, depending on what their needs are. As far as volunteers, they are truly the backbone of everything that we do. The success of our organization is contingent to the amount of volunteers we have and how willing they are to partner with us. So volunteers can work with us in a meal program where they can come in and serve meals to homeless youth, to homeless women, and homeless adults across the board. We also have donation centers where community members can drop off things such as gently used or new clothing, hygiene items, and we have volunteers who sort through those. We also have volunteers that partner with us to do community groups so they can sit with the clients. They could do something like a financial literacy class or just hang out with them and include them into the further community. So those are a few of the opportunities that we have.
Now, as we know, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected everything in one way or another. How has the pandemic affected volunteering this year, and has it had an impact on your donations?
Definitely. So COVID-19 has caused everybody to consider the risks for themselves and for their families, which has caused us, unfortunately, to decrease in our volunteers. And they're essential workers. The things that we do every day for our clients, they depend on us for these essential resources. So with this loss of volunteers and loss of donations, we definitely have been scrambling to fill some gaps. So if you're somebody who's interested in volunteering or partnering with us financially, whether it's bringing in donations or even just doing an in-kind donation, that's something that we are looking forward to and hoping to connect more.
A follow-up question for you. Do you have numbers? How many volunteers do you guys have in your organizations? And when I'm looking at pictures of all these volunteers, it just looks like you have young, older, right? People from all walks of life. Tell me about your volunteers.
Absolutely. So our volunteers are from all walks of life. We have over 3,000 volunteers per year across multiple facilities. And like you said, everybody who is engaged with Volunteers of America Utah is having fun. They're connected in various ways. So if you're somebody who has a specific skill set, or if you're thinking, I don't know if this is something that I can fit into, there is a place for you at Volunteers of America at any of our facilities.
Now, as you know, today is Giving Tuesday. What does this day mean for Volunteers of America? Is this a big day for your organization?
Yes, this is a huge day for us. We look forward to Giving Tuesday every single year. And the reason for that is because Giving Tuesday is a day where communities look at the need in front of them and they say, how can I get connected to this? How can I partner with all of the work that's being done in my community? Giving Tuesday has been days where families have decided, you know what, I'm going to partner and serve a meal every month to homeless youth at the Youth Resource Center. This is a day where people say, you know what, I'm going to do an in-kind donation and bring in essential resources to people in vulnerable situations. We also have people who look at their finances and say, you know what, this is something that I want to partner with. This is something that I want to give my money to financially. So Giving Tuesday is a huge day for us, and we look forward to it every single year.
Kierra, you guys are doing amazing things over at Volunteers of America. I just want to get your final thoughts as we wrap this interview. What should people who want to volunteer or help out, what should they think about or consider first and foremost?
I think the main thing is that for a lot of people, they're a little bit hesitant to get involved because they think they're not going to be a good fit, they're not going to enjoy their time, they're not comfortable. But I promise you, if you're someone who is looking to get involved at any organization, but specifically if you want to get involved with us at Volunteers of America Utah, check us out. Look into our volunteer opportunities. There really is something for everybody. So if you want more information, you can find our volunteer opportunities at voaut.org/volunteer. And if you're someone who's a little bit wary during the pandemic and you're not sure if you want to be in a facility, you can consider partnering with us financially. And if you want more information on that, you can find that at voaut.org/donate.
All right, you've been hearing from Kierra Cable from Volunteers of America. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about the great work you're doing. We appreciate you so much.
Of course, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It's the day of giving. We can't think of any better way, any easier way to give back to the community than to come down to ARUP and give some blood today.
That was Cindy Heiner, who visited ARUP today to donate blood on Giving Tuesday. Some philanthropic organizations don't always need volunteers or money, but donations of other types. Thanks for staying with us for our second In Focus segment tonight on Giving Tuesday, supporting causes in need. Joining us now via Zoom is Bill Crim, the Executive Director of United Way of Salt Lake. Bill, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's good to see you.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Bill, let's start by talking about the United Way. What does the organization do nationally, and how does that translate to your local work?
So United Way is a national network of local organizations. There are 1,800 worldwide, 1,200 in the United States, and 6 in Utah. And the mission of United Way globally is to fight for the education, the health, and the economic well-being of every person in every community. What that means to us here is that we work to connect people in need to resources, to partners, to organizations like Volunteers of America. And we build partnerships with those organizations and others to help every child in our community succeed in school and fulfill their potential.
Let's talk about the clients that come to you for help and resources. Who are those people? What's the demographic? Are we talking like refugees, families, children? What does that look like?
Well, there are two kinds of help that we provide. I think one comes through our 211 service. So anyone in Utah who finds themselves in need, and any demographic, any community, any corner of the state, can pick up their phone, call the number 211, and be connected to resources in their community that can help them with whatever they're facing, whether it's a health issue, a housing issue, a job issue. The other thing is that we focus our other efforts in specific communities where kids and families are wrestling with poverty, where the systems that impact their lives economically and health and otherwise have really left those families outside of the opportunities that they need to succeed. And so we build partnerships with schools, with nonprofit organizations, with volunteers to help those families succeed. And those could be refugee families, immigrant families, but really any family where opportunity is not the same for them as it is for many others.
How has the pandemic affected what the United Way of Salt Lake does as an organization?
Well, COVID has been devastating for so many families. Families have lost loved ones, obviously. Many Utahns have been impacted economically. Virtually all of us with kids in school have been impacted. And all of those things, of course, impact the work that we do. And we have had to really focus on those impacts. 211, for example, has had to draw in volunteer help to take an increased number of phone calls and respond to increased needs. Our school partners and our nonprofit partners, we have had to pivot in terms of how we engage volunteers, working remotely, connecting volunteers through Zoom and other ways to support students, rallying the community to connect kids to learning. We have to date generated more than 1,000 internet devices, laptops, and Chromebooks to connect kids and families to learning opportunities.
That's absolutely incredible. Let's compare Utah to other states. How do we compare in terms of giving, both financially and through volunteerism?
We're so fortunate to live in Utah, where every year it seems we rank at the top of the nation in terms of charitable giving and of volunteer service. Those of us who work in the nonprofit sector in Utah are deeply grateful to live in a state that is so compassionate and so caring.
What does Giving Tuesday mean to the United Way, both on the national level and then on the local level?
Well, I think it's an opportunity to focus people's efforts on those in their community who are in need. And this year, those needs are more intense, I think, than certainly I've seen. Giving Tuesday gives an opportunity to rally together, to come together and recognize that those of us who can and who have are joining together to support those in our community who need help at this time.
I just want to get your final thoughts as we wrap up our interview on Giving Tuesday. What's something that you want our viewers to know or to think about when it comes to the United Way of Salt Lake and Giving Tuesday?
I hope people recognize that that when we work together, whether it's on Giving Tuesday or whether it's tomorrow or next month, working together as a team in collaboration, we can solve some of these problems. We don't have to continue to see the same challenges that we have seen historically of need and of suffering. We have a community and a state and a country that can solve these problems if we do it together. And we invite people to visit our website, uw.org, to engage with us and be part of that team.
Yeah, don't wait till Giving Tuesday or the holidays, right, to be generous and help out. You've been hearing from Bill Crim from the United Way of Salt Lake. Bill, we really appreciate you being here tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our goal is to make sure our students are ready to learn and are healthy.
That was James Yapias from the Salt Lake Education Foundation talking about helping kids and families in need. ABC4 is partnering with the Salt Lake Education Foundation this winter, and we'll explain more on that later in the show. Joining us now is Kate Rubalcava. Kate is the Executive Director of the Utah Nonprofits Association, a group that represents all nonprofits in Utah. Kate, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Let's start with the Utah Nonprofit Association. How did your organization start, and what kind of services do you provide?
The Utah Nonprofits Association has been around for 30 years, and we started out of the genesis of really connecting nonprofit organizations to the training and resources that they need so they can continue to serve the communities that need them the most. So we have been connecting nonprofits with best practices training. We do policy and advocacy work for the nonprofit sector, and we also provide critical cost-saving benefits for nonprofits all across Utah.
I can't imagine how hard or what it would be like to start up your own nonprofit organization. So it's very comforting to hear that there's this resource here for those in the state who are looking to do some good. Today is Giving Tuesday. What should people who are considering volunteering or donating think about first and foremost?
Well, Giving Tuesday is such a wonderful day every year for everybody to get into the spirit of giving to charitable nonprofits across the country and especially here in the state of Utah. And some of the most critical things I think that people should think about as we start this giving season is really to just think about the nonprofits that are near and dear to their hearts and begin thinking about ways that they can give back to those organizations.
Let's talk about the COVID-19 pandemic. How has the pandemic affected nonprofit organizations this year?
So anytime our communities or our families get hurt or suffer, nonprofit organizations also find themselves in a challenging situation. The COVID-19 pandemic has really upended many nonprofits across the country and here in Utah locally. And what we saw at the onslaught in spring is that many nonprofit organizations had to expend dollars that they weren't planning to spend to convert to remote work. We're talking about $4.2 million was spent. And then nonprofit organizations lost about $11 million in revenue that they would have otherwise gained from galas and some of the spring fundraising. So we're talking about organizations that completely lost massive revenue streams, and also they had to dip into their reserves to switch into remote work. So that, coupled with an economic crisis, has really put nonprofit organizations at risk for not being able to serve all of the communities that they need to serve in the way that they need to serve them.
I think this has just been a wake-up call to how crucial that face-to-face interaction, that in-person interaction really is. Could there be nonprofits that need more attention than others, especially this year?
So let me just floor you a little bit more. There are 10,000 nonprofits in the state of Utah, which means that every single one of us watching and tuning in later is going to notice that there's a nonprofit out there that you know, love, trust, and respect that needs your help. So don't just necessarily think about the ones that you normally call your attention to, but nonprofits across the state, we heal, we shelter, we inspire, and we educate all across the state of Utah. So when you're thinking about giving to nonprofit organizations, really think about those organizations that speak to you in some way, that have maybe helped you in the past or inspire you. And that's really where you're going to find the sweet spot of how to give in this charitable season.
Now, we started our In Focus coverage today talking about scams. This is something that nonprofits deal with, unfortunately. There's a lot of people who, are generous and want to give, but unfortunately, that kind of brings in people who want to prey on those people. What are some resources or maybe some tips that you could provide to make it safer for the public to donate or help out?
Here's what I know. Nonprofit organizations employ some of the greatest people, some of the greatest professionals. We serve our community's most vulnerable. And every single day we show up to work dedicated in making sure that our communities are stronger and that they have the ability to thrive under some of the worst circumstances, like an economic crisis and a global pandemic that we're living through right now. So some of the main things that people can pay attention to when they're giving to nonprofits is to make sure that you do your research, just like you would with any financial transaction that you make. Make sure that you know the organization, that you know the kind of work that they do, and that you're connected with them in some way. My gut feeling is always to say, give to nonprofits that you know, love, trust, and respect. When you do that, you can be rest assured that any and all of your donations are going to be used in the way that you would want them to be used.
All right, we have time for one more question. I wanted to leave the last word with you. What would you like to leave our viewers with tonight on this Giving Tuesday?
Nonprofits far and wide across the state, everywhere, need our help. So if there's a nonprofit out there that you really want to give to, look them up. Go search the web, find them, and make that donation. And if you're interested in learning more about what the Utah Nonprofits Association does, you can find us on all of your social media at utahnonprofits.org. But I just so appreciate having an opportunity to talk about the good work of charitable nonprofits in the state of Utah.
Now, you've been hearing from Kate Rubalcava with the Utah Nonprofit Association. Kate, thank you so much for being here tonight. We enjoyed having you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.